Hi, my name is Julie Huntington, and I'm a professor here in the Department of English and World Literatures at Marymount Manhattan College. This semester I'm teaching a course, Reading Contemporary Africa. Since it's Black History Month, I thought I'd come up with a reading list of 5 recommendations to read for Black History Month. That being said, 5 is a very small number of texts, so I invite you to include suggestions of your favorite texts in the comments, because I think we could come up with a really great list together. So the first book that I want to talk about is from 1960. It's Ousmane Sembène's God's Bits of Wood. The original title in French is Les Bouts de Bois de Dieu, Bantima Mial, and it talks about, or it tells the story of a railway workers' strike that actually happened in the French West African colonies along the Dakar-Niger line between 1947 and 1948. So Sembène is looking back and telling the painful story of the railway workers and their families and the hardships that they endured during this very long and difficult strike. And he looks at life in 3 different West African locations. So there's a group in Bamako, a group in Thiès, and a group in Dakar. So we're looking at locations which are now in modern-day Mali or modern-day Senegal. The book is brutal, but the prose is gorgeous. People say that it's one of Sembène's masterworks. It's also a very resonant text, so it's infused with a lot of the rhythm and musicality of West African musical traditions, proverbs, languages, dancing traditions. Everything is there. It's just a really amazing text. The second book I wanted to recommend is from Véronique Tadjot. She's a writer from Côte d'Ivoire, and the book is called Queen Poku, a Concerto for Sacrifice. And this book looks at the legend of Queen Poku, and she was the first Baoli queen. And the Baoli group is a group that separated from the Ashanti group several centuries ago. And so the Baolis kind of relocated in exile to what is now present-day Côte d'Ivoire. So in taking up this legend, Véronique Tadjot is looking at who is this woman behind the legend? What did she experience? And why is this legend being told again and again? She looks at the power of legend and sees how legends are used, sometimes for positive purposes, but also sometimes for negative purposes. So it's a really incredible text. The next book I wanted to recommend is a more contemporary work. It's by Ya Gyasi, and it's called Homegoing. This is an incredible book that looks at 7 generations of a family, 2 branches of a family who have lived side by side, separated by distance without really knowing each other. So one of the daughters, there's half-sisters, and so we follow their lines. So one of the sisters is Efia. She's raised in the heart of Fanti land in Ghana. We follow the personal histories of Efia and her descendants, and it's really interesting to see how the personal small histories or family histories intersect with larger historical events that are taking place. So it's a really good way to learn about the history of the nation of Ghana. And then from the other side, the other sister, Essie, who comes from the heart of Ashanti land, is taken as a prisoner and suffers the brutality and violence of the transatlantic slave trade. So we follow her legacy in the United States. So again, we see how the personal intersects with the big H historical questions, right? So you'll kind of look at the impact of the Fugitive Slave Act and how it affects her descendants, right? We see how a lot of government policies affected people in really personal ways. It's a gorgeous prose, beautiful book, highly recommend it. The next book that I'd like to recommend is an older book as well, so we're going back to 1972. And this is written by a Caribbean author from Guadeloupe, Simone Schwarz-bart. The original title is Pluie et vent sur Tellum et Miracle, but it's been translated to The Bridge of Beyond. And the original translation still holds up really well. There's a new edition that's been reissued with an introduction by Jamaica Kincaid, so I highly recommend it. But this is looking at history in a more personal way. So it's looking at 5 generations of women in a rural town called Fonzombi in Guadeloupe. So it's looking at relationships between mothers and daughters, grandmothers and granddaughters, starting in the early 20th century and exploring the fallout of the slave system, right? So looking at the immediate after effects and then the long-term after effects of the slave system in Guadeloupe. It's a beautiful book. I highly recommend it. Again, it's a very musical text. I can't say enough good things about it. It's incredible. So I highly recommend that you read this text. The final book that I wanted to mention is History as It Happens, and it's a book by Dany Laferrière, which is called Tout bouge autour de moi. And I'm going to look at my cheats sheet because I always mess up the name of the English translation. The English translation is The World is Moving Around Me. And what this is it's a fragmentary, moment by moment as it happens chronicle of the Haitian earthquake, which took place January 12, 2010. Laferrière was in Haiti for a conference. He lives in Canada, but he's from Haiti. He was in Haiti for a conference. And so as everything is happening, he's chronicling things in his notebook that he always carries around in his pocket. The text is incredible. So he looks at what happens in the moment of impact, but then he also looks at the moments after as he's connecting with strangers, sharing in moments of despair, holding on to moments of hope. And in this chronicling, there's also a really great examination of Haitian history. So we're looking at history as it's happening, but we're also looking at how things come to head in a single moment. And this can become a moment of cataclysm, but it can also be a moment of transformation as well. So those are just 5 recommendations that I have for you. I hope that you have many more to suggest because I'd love to have a really active thread on the comments. But thank you very much and happy reading.